Today I fucked up by trying to deliver pizza to the wrong house. I just want to start off by saying that I'm an incredibly awkward person. I'm also super passive and try to avoid confrontation at all costs. For example, I was in Walmart once and it was just me and another guy in the same aisle. As this dude passed me, he let out the longest and loudest fart I've ever heard in my life. For some reason I made eye contact with him and said I'm sorry. I think I just felt bad for him and was sorry for being there to hear it. I'm just weird, okay? I think this story is more funny if you understand the kind of person I am. Anyway, back to the fuck up. I had a delivery today where the remarks said it was the house at the very top of the hill. As I pulled onto the road, I noticed a sharp incline and saw a house that looked to be at the top of the hill. The front door was wide open and I thought someone was standing in the doorway waving me down. I thought for sure I was at the right place. I did think it was weird when I realized I had to unwrap a chain around their gate to get in, but it happens sometimes, so I just proceeded to the front porch. As I walked up the steps, I could hear a man talking, but I couldn't tell exactly what he was saying. The screen door was about 1/3 of the way open and because of the glare on the glass, I couldn't see very well inside. All I could make out was a guy standing and waving. I don't usually like opening a customer's door myself, but I honestly thought the guy was telling me to do it, so I opened it all the way while still standing on the porch. I immediately saw that the guy had on a VR set and was playing a game. Tried to get his attention by saying hello. I started with a normal inside voice, but eventually basically yelled it at him. Dude didn't hear me at all. He kept saying something about cheese, and I thought he might be talking about pizza, so I stayed there for a few more minutes trying to get his attention. He was standing like 5 feet away from me this whole time. I looked back at my receipt and noticed it was a girl's name, and only then did I realize there was a chance I was at the wrong place. Sure enough, when I got back in my car I noticed the road wrapped around the back of the house I was at and there was one more house at the end. So, this guy has no idea that someone stood 5 feet away from him and watched him play VR for like 5 minutes today. It gives me the heebie-jeebies and I'm the one that was the weirdo. Just feel so icky about it, lol. If you play VR with your front door wide open with the screen door cracked and you have a friend you call Cheese, then I'm so sorry I creeped on you. TL Doctor, I went to the wrong house to deliver pizza and creeped on this guy playing something on VR and he has no idea I was there. Are you Canadian by any chance? Smiley face. I sometimes apologize to people that bump into me even if I'm sitting down and they are the ones walking. Especially if I'm distracted, it's like an automatic like collision response. Embarrassed smiley face. I find the idea of apologizing to people for them farting hilarious. I'm going to actively try to do it now. How did the guy who farted react when you apologized to him? Who just kept on walking? One time, I let a hell of a ripper in Wally World. It cleared out all of sporting goods and all of automotive. I probably would have died laughing if someone stuck around to say sorry. He let out the longest and loudest fart I've ever heard in my life. For some reason I made eye contact with him and said I'm sorry. Dude, it's 3:45 AM and this part just made me laugh so loud. Why is this so funny? Damn, now I'll read the rest of your post. Today I fucked up by ripping ass on my husband's head. Kind of embarrassing. My farts have been awful since Christmas time. All this chocolate must be getting to me. However, the reason I'm posting this right now is because my husband left. A few hours ago, we were just relaxing watching some TV. His head was lying on my backside, and I felt one brewing. I thought it would be pretty funny to rip one right on his head. Well, when I let loose, it was unnatural. It lasted a good 5 seconds, and the sound was deafening. It also smelled like something had died. It almost got to the point where I started gagging. That's when I knew I messed up. My husband proceeded to grab the keys to his car and drive away. I tried to tell him it was a joke, but he looked pissed. He has to be the nicest guy I know, and he doesn't get mad easily, so I know this can't be good. He hasn't responded to my texts or calls. I'm not sure what to do. I'm contemplating calling his parents, but I really don't want to tell them the reason for doing so. Too long, didn't read. I farted on my husband's head, and he left me. Update, he came back earlier this morning. He told me that he signed us up for couples therapy. I'm not sure what to do with myself. I feel awful. This was posted 6 hours ago. Did he come back? Hand over mouth. Yes, just updated. If he signed you up for couples therapy, the fart was only the icing on the cake, and there are other issues at play. I'm sure he was just going to get a pack of smokes or some milk. Maybe he'll run into my dad. He prob went to eat some soft serve so he could fight back. Found the lactose intolerant guy. Ha 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 ha. That reminded me of my last day of 6th grade on the school bus heading home. I've always had some silent but hella deadly farts. You know when they are bad when they come out hot? Well, when I got on the bus, I felt the rumbling start, so I held it as long as I can, thinking I can make to my stop before I let it rip. Well, I made it 2 stops away. As the bus started to stop, it slipped a silent hot plum of gas. When the bus opened the door, I promptly exited. I only had to walk 2 blocks. As the bus started to drive away, I hear OMG. The bus went to the next stop and everyone piled out, including the bus driver. Today I fucked up by asking the Down syndrome kid to prom. Though obligatory, this happened a couple years back before this pandemic happened. Anyway, it was my senior year and I was determined to make the most of it. I joined cross country, was in a play, but most importantly to this story, volunteered at the events for the special needs kids, sports events, the occasional talent show, etc. Now, normally I was just working the concession stands at special needs sports events and didn't do anything beyond wave, but sometimes after the games I would have a conversation with some of them. One kid I got to know a bit was Keith. Now, Keith had Down syndrome, but he was high functioning. He was very good at keeping conversation, and back then I thought he was adorable. I know now how condescending I was, but back then I didn't. So this boy, who by the way was actually older than me, and I become friends. On occasion I sit with him at lunch since nobody else did because I thought he looked lonely. Somehow, the topic of prom came up. I asked if he was excited, and he nodded. I then asked if he knew who he was going with, and he said he didn't. We then chatted a bit about prom and he really did seem so excited. I decided, being charitable in my senior year, that I would ask him to prom so he would have a date for the most important night of the year for him. After all, why should he have to go alone? He was so sweet, gosh darn, and it was the least I could do. So the next day, making a big show of it, even bringing a few friends to sit nearby, who of course showered me with compliments and told me how sweet I was, I brought a flower for him at lunch the next day, and this is the conversation that followed. Hey Keith. Wow. Who are the flowers for? You. He of course gave the biggest, most thankful grin. He really was a sweet guy. So, I know you were excited for prom. And I wanted to know if you would go with me. Oh, what's wrong? Well, me and my friends just sat there, waiting as the chatter of the lunchroom continued around us. Casey asked me. He then went back to eating his lunch. Casey was also in special ed. I knew they were friends, but I didn't think she would ask someone to prom, especially not another kid in special ed. Again, back then I was so condescending and arrogant. Why wouldn't she ask her friend to prom? I excused myself, and that was the beginning of a long reflection. I think that interaction was what I needed to shock some sense into me before I headed into the real world. I still talk to Keith sometimes. He works at a local Kroger and also does volunteer work from time to time. He doesn't seem to hold anything against me, and I genuinely treat him like a person now. Too long didn't read. My senior year of high school, I pitied a boy with D's and asked him to prom in front of my friends. Instead of a gracious yes, he told me he already had a date, which embarrassed me but also shocked some sense into me. Edit, to clarify, I didn't post this for backpats. I mentioned several times throughout the post that I know I was being uptight by pitying him and not seeing him as a person rather than just an outlet for good deeds. I posted this because I know a lot of people probably have this same line of thinking, and I wanted to give them the value of this lesson without them making the same mistake I did. If I wanted to ask him to prom, it should have been because he's my friend, not for clout and good person points. He's a grown man, not a helpless little toddler who doesn't know anything. And I now treat him as such. On a lighter note, I appreciate the information and resources about person first language and not using terms like high functioning. I really appreciate this education and will use it going forward. Thank you for the kind responses and advice. You didn't screw up, he's so cool. He had 2 girls ask him to the prom. After reading this post, I thought you would have referred to this person as my friend with Down syndrome instead of the Down syndrome kid. But that's just me. 1. Saying the Down syndrome kid is very condescending, the very thing you claim to have learned a lesson about. 2. None of what you said in the post seems wrong in any way. You asked him to prom and turns out he already had a date. That's very normal. Where's the fuck up? She fucked up by inviting him out of pity / The only thing condescending is referring to him as the Down syndrome kid. Always put the person before the disability. Charitable, yeah, that's odd to look at it that way.